President Biden announced his federal vaccine mandate. He said religious exemptions would be allowed. But around the country, people are already reporting that their religious exemption requests are being rejected. PJ Media detailed a list of questions being asked of employees at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Among them, personal questions like, explain where and how you adhere to your beliefs, practices, and observances, and whether they have strengthened or diminished over time. And if you have a spiritual leader, has he or she addressed the issue? Well, are questions like that legal? Joining us with more is Kent Johnson. Mr. Johnson is Senior Corporate Advisor for Religious Freedom and Business for the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation. Kent, thank you for taking time to provide some insights from Houston. So what do you think? Are religious exemption questionnaires like that legal?
The answer is probably, but there's some problems. That's what lawyers always say. You have to forgive me for that. But the basic question, of course, can a company, can the government require vaccinations without violating freedom of religion? The answer is yes. Supreme Court cases have said that the right to practice religion doesn't include the liberty to expose the community to communicable disease, ill health, and death. So the bottom line is that though there can be an exemption, there has to be a genuine religious belief. The exception, the obligation is, or the objection has to be based on religious grounds, and it has to be based on a sincere religious ground. And that's the question that's being asked here. What these employers are asking is, is this really a religious objection, or is it simply based, I say simply, is it based on other rationales? Now, I think it's important to note that there are lots of different laws in different states. We have 47 states that explicitly give exemptions for religious reasons. Now, the federal law is going to give an exemption for religious reasons, but the parameters of that, just how far it reaches, have yet to be determined in the courts. That's something that is just being figured out at this point.
So how do you think these religious exemptions will work? Do people need notes or forms signed by their pastors, rabbis, imams?
In most cases, companies are not going to be insisting on that. It'd be a rare situation. Now, I understand in the medical field, there's a different story. The risks are perceived as more severe there by the employers. I'd suggest to your readers that they kind of put themselves in the shoes of the companies. They're kind of in trouble either way. If they give easy exemptions just based on somebody's desire not to get the vaccine, or distrust of the people who mandated the vaccine, if they allow that without a religious foundation, then many people will get the exemption. And they run the risk that if there's a breakout of COVID, they'll be accused of creating an environment which was unsafe. But the other side of that is true also. If they mandate that everybody's got to get this vaccine, and somebody has a negative reaction to that vaccine, they might be sued for damage to health, for a workplace injury.
They could be held liable for that. Now, Pastor Jackson Laymeyer of Sheridan Church in Tulsa is actually signing religious exemption forms for people joining or donating to his church. Aren't practices like that a bit risky? How could you prove someone's a faithful Christian who should be awarded an exemption just because they made a donation to a church? What's the fraud potential here?
Well, I think there is serious eye raising that happens in a situation like that. How can we believe that that's a legitimate religious ground? In fact, the mainstream religions, there's not one that I'm aware of other than Christian Science and a few small ones that would have a legitimate religious reason not to receive the vaccine. If somebody accepts the vaccine for measles and then says, but this other vaccine, I don't think that's good. what is the theological ground for that objection? I think it's shaky. I think there has to be credibility, and as Christian believers, we've got to be honest in the way that we seek exemptions. All of that said, there are several states that allow exemptions for philosophical reasons, not connected with religion. And of course, you have medical exemptions if your doctor feels that it's dangerous for you to do this. And so I think all of that is going to play in the litigation that follows. It's hard to predict, quite frankly. What's important, though, I think, is that people who have reservations about this should have freedom to express those reservations. When they're shut down, when they're prohibited from expressing their concerns, this is not necessarily a religious concern, but any concern, that is dangerous territory, and shutting it down is dangerous.
Okay, Kent Johnson, Senior Corporate Advisor for Religious Freedom and Business for the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation. Thank you for sharing your time and insights.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Glad to be with you.